So as you can plainly see from the last video, based on the calamity that was going on in the United States of America after the second term of President Woodrow Wilson, one can see how a return to normalcy might be a good idea. The actual return to normalcy idea actually was a mistake in a speech that he gave in April of 1920, when Warren G. Harding was actually trying to say normality, when it was slip of the tongue turned out to be normalcy. He actually was quoted as to say, America's present need is not a heroics but healing, not Nostradamus but normalcy. This was given in a speech of April 1920 and was actually quoted in another article on Zucalo in May of 2020, which is in my bibliography. This quote, this article that was written by Zucalo is actually return to normalcy was a good model even for present day. Harding, who was a Democrat, who was a Republican from Ohio, was actually running on a campaign and an idea after all the calamity that was going on to actually bring America back to pre-war times when there was prosperity in America and the times were much better. He also was quoted one time as saying that he called for a sustainment and triumphant return to nationality, and that was according to the National Free Press. You can kind of see the similarities here as well with the 2016 motto used by President Donald Trump in his election campaign. All this time, this is all setting up to this motto. So as you can see in the picture that I have on my slide, the return to normalcy, this is actually Warren Harding pointing at somebody. Not a great orator, not a great speech maker, but somebody who stood for something of normalcy and bring the country back to a much simpler time and an easier time. One of the things that he used, and I want to review, is the other picture. This was important because it's a picture of him standing in front of an American flag with one hand up showing for peace and the other hand holding the American flag in his hand saying America first. This is a very simple article and ad that he used in a campaign in his campaign during that period of the 1920s, but it was very influential because of the fact that it showed that Harding was all about America and he wanted to put America first. So he kind of conflated the idea, the same thing that Trump used in 2016 for a Make America Great sort of policy. Then the other thing that I wanted to look at, which is the cartoon. So in the 1920s and the 1930s, there is an actual use of political cartoons, which is a great way to get people to think about it. Newspapers were a big deal in those days. And one of the articles that they had, one of the cartoons that they had is the one that's on my other page here, and it shows Warren G. Harding and Cox standing in front of a flag, looking at something and trying to decide who are you going to vote for here. If you look at it, you see that Harding, it's at the bottom of the flag. It says under which flag, right? And Cox is actually raising up the League of Nations flag. Again, another divisive topic that was used back in the. So Cox is more on the side of Woodrow Wilson. He's obviously a Democrat, and so was Wilson. You see Harding standing there with something in his hand, and he's got the American flag standing behind him. Again, a very simple ad showing that he cares about America and he wants America to come first and be great. Again, you can similar to that. So in conclusion, when you look back at this article and you look back at these ads and you look back at the motto that Warren G. Harding used in the 1920s, you can see what Harding was trying to do was trying to show and symbolically show that he cared about America first. He was going to bring America back to the old policy of isolationism, which is used previously to all the war and all the influence. Obviously, Woodrow Wilson had made a mistake in his campaign, in his second administration, and brought America into war and caused a bunch of problems. And the American populace was ready for change. They were ready for something different. They were ready for someone to bring America back to what it once was, a prosperous nation. So I think if you look at it in the context of the current times that we live in, you can say that America now is going through very similar times. The pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic that just hit us and put us through, the cultural uprise of the racial equality that we just went through. You saw a campaign ad by Joe Biden that kind of used the same ideas and the same principles. Bring America back to what it once was. It's a good idea. It's a thought process, but it shows that even though times may change, political campaigns and the desire for America and the desire for the Americans to be a self-important nation is extremely important to everybody. That's the end of my presentation.